Help! Someone stop him! He's taking my puppy! He's terrifying my son and trying to steal our dog! Call the police right now!
Meet Susan. If a migraine decided to put on a designer tracksuit and a fake tan, it would look exactly like her. She's rocking the classic "Let me speak to your manager, Bob," sunglasses that cost more than my first car, and the absolute unwavering delusion that the entire world is her private gift shop. And today, Susan decided that my 4-month-old golden retriever Max was the perfect birthday present for her spoiled son. It was a perfectly normal Tuesday afternoon at the local park. I was sitting on a wooden bench, enjoying the breeze, and watching Max do what he does best, chasing his own tail and failing miserably. He's a fluffy, clumsy ball of pure happiness, and he doesn't have a mean bone in his body. That's when the predator entered the scene. A kid, maybe 9 years old, came charging across the grass like a runaway freight train. The kid didn't ask to pet Max. He didn't even say a word. He just lunged forward and tried to yank a bright yellow tennis ball right out of Max's mouth. Max let out a confused little yelp, tucked his tail, and scrambled behind my boots for safety. I put my hand up and looked at the kid. "Hey, buddy, you can't just grab things from a dog like that. You need to ask first, okay? You scared him." The kid stopped. His face turned a deep shade of crimson, and then he let out a roar of frustration as if I'd just canceled Christmas. And right on cue, the final boss appeared. Marching across the field with the terrifying speed of a heat-seeking missile was his mother, Susan.
Excuse me? Did you just speak to my child? Who gave you the right to lecture my son on how to play?
I didn't even stand up. I just leaned back and looked at her. I wasn't lecturing him, ma'am. He tried to snatch a toy from my puppy's mouth. I just told him to be gentle so nobody gets hurt.
My Brayden is a perfect angel. And if your dangerous animal is too unpredictable for children, he shouldn't be in a public park. Look at my poor boy. He is in total distress because of you.
Brayden wasn't in distress. Brayden was staring at Max's tennis ball with pure, unadulterated greed. But then, the energy shifted. Susan crossed her arms, her long acrylic nails tapping against her sleeves, and she started scanning Max from head to toe. Suddenly, her anger melted away, replaced by a terrifying, cold smile. "You know what? Brayden has had a very difficult week at school. He deserves a big reward. And since you've completely ruined our afternoon with your attitude, I think it's only fair that you settle the score. I'm going to take that puppy. Brayden's birthday is tomorrow, and this would be a perfect gift." I actually laughed out loud. I thought it was a hidden camera prank for some viral video. I looked around for a camera crew. "Ma'am, you've got a great sense of humor, but this is my dog. He's family, not a prize at a carnival."
Do I look like I'm telling a joke? I will give you $400 for him, right now, in cash. That's probably more money than you've seen in a month at whatever blue-collar job you have. Take the bills and hand over the leash. Now.
My smile evaporated instantly. I stood up. I'm 6'2" and fairly broad, and when I stood up, Susan actually had to take a full step back. I shortened the leash, pulling Max tight against my leg. Listen to me very carefully. My dog is not for sale. Not for 400, not for 4 million. Take your son, take your money, and walk away before I involve the authorities for harassment. I turned my back to her for just a second to grab my backpack from the bench. That was a massive mistake. You should never turn your back on someone who thinks the world owes them everything. Before I could even reach the zipper, I heard Max let out a sharp, terrified cry. I spun around, and my heart nearly stopped. Susan had completely bypassed me. She was down on her knees in the dirt, her hands gripped tightly around Max's collar. She was physically trying to drag my 30-pound puppy across the grass toward the parking lot while her son cheered. Max was struggling, his paws sliding wildly in the grass, clearly terrified by this stranger's aggressive behavior.
Come here, baby. You're coming with us now. Ignore the mean man. Mommy's got you.
I saw red. I lunged forward and grabbed the shoulder of her jacket. I didn't use unnecessary force. I just firmly peeled her away from my dog. She lost her balance and stumbled backward, landing on the grass with a thud. I immediately scooped Max up into my arms. He was trembling, burying his wet nose into the side of my neck. I looked down at Susan, expecting her to be embarrassed. Instead, I saw a wicked, calculated look in her eyes. She reached up, deliberately tore the collar of her own expensive shirt, and then dug her own nails into her forearm until it turned bright red. Then, she threw her head back and let out a sound like a broken siren.
Help! Somebody help me! This man is trying to take my puppy! He accosted me, and he's trying to steal our dog! Call the police!
The entire park went dead silent for a heartbeat. Then, the chaos started. Heads snapped in our direction from every corner of the field. Within seconds, a crowd began to swarm us like they were looking for a show. In their eyes, they saw a woman on the ground crying and a large guy with tattoos holding a whimpering dog. The optics were terrible. A guy in a tight gym shirt and heavy boots pushed through the front of the crowd. He looked at me with pure judgment and stepped right into my personal space, puffing out his chest. "Hey, put the dog down and get away from her, man. You're not going anywhere until the cops get here." I tried to explain. I told him that she was the one who tried to snatch the dog, that I was just protecting my property. But Susan was a professional manipulator. She was on the ground, curled into a ball, sobbing like she was in a drama movie.
He just came out of nowhere. I was walking my sweet boy, and he shoved me. He said he'd do something terrible if I didn't give him the dog. Please, don't let him take my puppy.
Now she was fabricating threats. The crowd was muttering, getting louder and more hostile. An older woman was already on her phone giving the police my description. Muscle Guy actually reached out and grabbed the collar of my jacket, pinning me against the park bench. I said, "Put the dog down, bro. Now." But it was about to get much worse. A silver SUV jumped the curb and came to a screeching halt on the grass just a few yards away. The driver's door flew open, and a man in a golf polo sprinted toward us. This was Greg, Susan's husband. He dropped to his knees next to her, pulling her into a hug while glaring at me with calculated hatred. "You piece of trash! I told you to stay away from our neighborhood. Did you really think you could follow us here and take our dog?" I was stunned. It wasn't just Susan. They were a team. They had clearly scouted Max earlier and decided they were going to frame me to get a high-end dog for free. Greg stood up and pulled his phone out, turning the screen toward the crowd and the muscle guy. "Look, I have proof. This is our dog. I have dozens of photos of him at our house." I caught a glimpse of the screen. It was a photo of a golden retriever puppy on a white rug. It wasn't even Max. The dog in the photo had a different ear shape. It was a stock photo from a pet website. But to a group of angry strangers who already decided I was the villain, it was a smoking gun. Muscle Guy tightened his grip on my jacket. "You're done, man. You're going away for a long time." I looked at Greg, then at Susan, who was smirking behind her husband's shoulder. I stopped struggling. I just leaned back against the bench and waited. Because I had a digital trap set for them, and they were walking right into the center of it. 2 patrol cars came to a screeching halt right on the edge of the grass, their tires kicking up dust. Red and blue lights flooded the park, reflecting off the angry faces of the crowd. 3 officers stepped out, their expressions unreadable but firm as they moved toward the center of the chaos. Susan didn't wait for them to approach. She bolted toward the lead officer, her face a mask of calculated despair.
Officer! Thank heaven you're here! This man just tried to take our family dog! He forced me into the dirt and acted aggressively toward my son. Look at my arm! He's a menace! Please, stop him before he hurts someone else!
The lead officer, a sergeant with years of experience, held up a hand to stop her. "Ma'am, please step back. Everyone, stay where you are." He turned his gaze toward me, while Muscle Guy finally let go of my jacket, looking proud of himself. "Sir, keep your hands where I can see them. Why are you holding that dog?" I didn't move an inch. I kept my hands open and visible, holding Max's harness gently. "Officer, I am the legal owner of this dog. This woman and her husband are attempting to steal him by orchestrating this scene. I have remained calm, but I will not hand over my property to strangers." "That's a lie!" Greg shouted, stepping forward and thrusting his phone toward the sergeant's face. "This is our dog. We have proof. I have the photos right here. This guy has been waiting for a chance to snatch him." The sergeant took Greg's phone and squinted at the screen. He looked at the photo of the random golden retriever, then looked at Max, who was currently sitting peacefully between my feet. The sergeant handed the phone back to Greg and pulled out a notepad. "All right, ma'am. Since you claim this is your dog, tell me his name. And what commands does he know?" The entire park went dead silent. You could hear the wind in the trees. Susan froze, her eyes darting toward Greg, whose face was suddenly dripping with sweat. They had spent so much time planning the attack that they hadn't even bothered to agree on a fake name for the dog they were trying to steal.
His name? It's Buddy. Yes, Buddy. Come here, Buddy. Come to Mommy. See? He's just nervous because of that mean man.
The sergeant looked at Max. Susan clapped her hands and whistled, practically begging the dog to move. Max didn't even twitch. He was busy watching a squirrel in a nearby tree. I took a deep breath and looked the sergeant in the eye. His name is Max, and he only responds to specific commands. I took a half step forward and said in a sharp, clear voice, "Max, zits." Max instantly dropped his tail to the grass and sat at perfect attention, his eyes locked on mine. The crowd let out a collective gasp. Muscle Guy's jaw literally dropped, and he took a slow step away from me. Susan's face turned from bright red to a ghostly, sickly white. But I was just getting started. I pulled my phone out of my pocket, keeping it visible for the officers. "Sergeant, I don't just have a photo. I have his digital registration, his veterinary records from yesterday, and most importantly, he is microchipped. The chip is registered to my name, my address, and my phone number. If you have a scanner in your vehicle, we can end this right now." Greg looked like he was about to faint. He started backing away toward his SUV, but the second officer moved to block his path. But Susan? Her ego couldn't accept defeat. She decided to triple down on her story.
He's lying! He's a professional! He probably found a way to fake those records! He pushed me! I'm injured! I want to press charges for his behavior!
"Actually," I interrupted, my voice cutting through her screeching like a razor, "I'm glad you mentioned that. It's time to look at the real evidence." I pointed to my black tactical backpack sitting on the bench behind me. Right on the strap, a tiny red LED light was blinking steadily. I use an action camera to track my training sessions with Max. That camera has a 170-degree wide-angle lens and a high-fidelity microphone. It has been recording in 4K resolution since the moment I walked into this park. It caught her offering me cash. It caught her husband waiting in the car. It caught her grabbing my dog by the collar. And it perfectly captured her ripping her own shirt and scratching her own arm to frame me. Watching Susan process those words was the most satisfying moment of my life. Her eyes went wide, her mouth hung open, and she looked like a deer caught in high-beam headlights. The smug, entitled queen of the neighborhood was gone, replaced by a woman who realized she was about to face the consequences of her own actions.
You can't record me! I didn't give you permission! That's a violation of my privacy! Officer, seize that camera! He's a creep! Delete the footage right now!
The sergeant didn't even blink. He walked over to my bag, checked the camera, and then asked me to pull the feed up on my phone. I opened the app, connected to the camera, and pressed play, turning the volume to maximum. The audio was perfect. Every person in that crowd heard her entitled, nasty voice offering to buy my mutt because she couldn't find a breeder. The sergeant hit pause and looked at Susan. The silence that followed was heavy. He slowly reached for his belt and unclipped 2 pairs of metal handcuffs. The look in his eyes told Susan everything she needed to know.
No! Get your hands off me! Do you know who I am? I have a Pilates class! Greg! Greg, tell them! This is a mistake!
Greg walked away in shame while the cuffs clicked on Susan's wrists. The crowd actually cheered as she was shoved into the squad car. I gave Max a scratch and headed home. Susan wanted a free puppy. She got a felony record and a very expensive lesson. Best walk ever. If you enjoyed seeing Susan get exactly what she deserved, hit that like button and subscribe for more daily justice. What would you have done in my shoes? Let me know in the comments below. See you in the next one.